Welcome, bienvenidos, benvindu to the Soccermetrics Copa Libertadores show, part of the SDH network. The only English language show devoted to South America's premier club competition. I'm your host, Howard Hamilton, the founder of Soccermetrics. This is the 100th episode of the Soccermetrics Copa Libertadores show, and it marks the midway point of the group stage. The 100th episode will not come and go without being noticed, and later on I'll provide more details on how I plan recognizing it. But for now, the focus is on this week's matches as the 32 group stage teams return to action throughout South America. In this episode, a preview of Match Day 3. And we start this episode, as always, with news from around the Libertadores. And the big news item from around the Libertadores is manager turnover. No fewer than 4 teams currently in the group stage have announced changes at the top of their technical staffs. And we start with Peru's Universitario. Universitario let Javier Rabanal go after a home loss to Coquimbo and an away loss to Melgar in Peru's Liga Uno. The 47-year-old Spaniard took over the club at the start of the year, and he led the team for 12 matches with a 5-3-2 record in the league. Jorge Araujo takes over for the next 3 matches. He actually took over last week. He had a win, he also had a loss, and he will be on the touchlines for this week's Libertadores match versus Nacional. Now, the story of Rabanal doesn't end here. In fact, he was rushed to a local hospital in Lima suffering from an infection. This occurred on Monday. As of this recording, he remains in the hospital. Some are saying that it was stress-induced. There are still negotiations between him and the club as to his separation clause, as to his severance package. So everything is still in flux at Peru's biggest club. Next we go to Colombia, where Independiente Medellin let go Alejandro Restrepo. He had been with the club for 20 months, since August of 2024. Sebastian Botero is the interim manager for Independiente Medellin, and the club are looking at a number of managers who were recently let go, such as Oscar Pareja, Alberto Gamero, and Leonel Alvarez. But the word from sources inside the club is that the club management is converging upon Jonathan Risueño. He's a 43-year-old Spanish manager, currently at Deportivo Pasto, who are currently second in Colombia's Liga Betplay. And next we go to Bolivia, where Club Bolívar fired manager Flavio Robato after a string of negative results, including a home draw in Libertadores 2 weeks ago. Vladimir Soria is the caretaker manager there. There are a number of managers who have been mentioned as next in line to take over the Bolivian side, including Alberto Gamero. He could join either Independiente Medellin or Bolívar. Other candidates include Roberto Mosquera, Javier Rabanal, who's the preference of the Citigroup, who owns Club Bolívar, Juan Cruz Real, Alfredo Gamero, Carlos Bustos, and Cristian Diaz. And finally, Paraguayan club Libertad let go Francisco Javier Arce. Juan Zamudio is new manager there. Now, the next news item has to do with players, fans, and clubs behaving badly in the Libertadores. Starting with the players, Cecilio Dominguez was given a 2-match suspension by CONMEBOL for throwing the ball in the face of Maximilian Castro during their match versus Sporting Cristal. Dominguez was shown a red card on the field after a VAR decision, and CONMEBOL decided to increase the suspension to 2 matches. In addition, he was issued a $3,000 fine to be taken out of Cerro Porteño's TV and sponsorship share. This has been a controversial moment for Dominguez. The fans want him gone from Cerro Porteño, In fact, he issued an apology on social media for his acts during that Libertadores match. Junior Sornosa of Independiente del Valle was issued a 2-match suspension after he was sent off in their Libertadores match versus Rosario Central. He was also given a $3,000 fine. And Luis Caicedo of Club Always Ready was shown an additional match suspension to the red card that he received versus Lanús. Caicedo's sending off was really unusual because he received 2 yellow cards in a minute, and both occurred for dissent. And now let's turn to clubs behaving badly, and fans behaving badly as well. Independiente Santa Fe of Colombia were fined $5,000 for launching pyrotechnics within the stadium. Bolivar were fined $5,000 for players not being made available for post-match interviews. Junior of Colombia were also fined $5,000 for lighting flares and pyrotechnics in their stadium during the most recent home Libertadores match. Fluminense were fined $5,000 because an official from the local government did not attend the pre-match security briefing. There are pre-match security briefings that occur about 2 or 3 hours before a home match, and there are 7 designated officials who are required to attend. A member of the local government was supposed to be present for the meeting. That member did not appear, and so Fluminense will have to pay that. Coquimbo were fined a total of $21,000 for a number of acts during home match versus Nacional. They were fined for displaying a banner that didn't comply with Libertadores regulations. That was a $10,000 fine. Furthermore, they were fined for banners and tarps blocking the view of the public. That was a $3,000 fine. And for not complying with pre-match protocols, which carried an $8,000 fine. But they were also warned for their TV compound area not being up to standard, and their security plan not being up to standard, and not complying with the online reporting of their match roster. That happened in their match versus Universitario. The biggest fines went to Tolima. They were fined $30,000 because it was found that their assistant managers were participating in Libertadores matches without a CONMEBOL license. Barcelona were fined $60,000, $30,000 because of objects thrown onto the field, and for unsporting behavior in the technical area. $20,000 fine was issued to the club, and a $10,000 fine was issued to the manager. Now, the following clubs were warned for infractions against Libertadores regulations. Peñarol received a warning for a delayed entry onto the field during their match against Independiente Santa Fe. The next offense will carry fines to the club and to the manager. Corinthians were warned for not following their travel itinerary 72 hours before the match and for not complying with post-match press conference guidelines. Cusco were warned for not having a proper security ring outside their stadium and for lack of security resources in place. Cruzeiro were warned for objects thrown on the field by supporters. Independiente del Valle were warned for not complying with post-match interview standards, and Independiente Rivadavia were warned for not complying with press conference standards. So those are the major news items from around the Copa Libertadores. And now let's get into the Match Day 3 previews. This is a match day in which seed number 2 will host seed number 1, and seed number 4 will host seed number 3. So potentially we have top of the table matches in some of the groups. Let's go into the 3 featured matches of the round. Starting in Group C, where Independiente Rivadavia hosts Deportivo La Guaira in Mendoza. This, surprisingly enough, is an encounter between the top 2 teams of the table. Independiente Rivadavia are coming off a 5-1 victory over Gimnasia de Mendoza, and they're currently first in Zone B in Argentina's Primera División Apertura tournament. They have already confirmed that they will have the best overall record in the Apertura. They're 8 matches unbeaten over all competitions, and they've only lost 1 over the last 10 weeks, 12 matches in total. Their key players will be Fabricio Sartori, who is leading the team in goals, Sebastián Villa, and Alex Arce, who came over from Liga de Quito a season and a half ago. Deportivo La Guaira are a surprise outfit in Group C. They're currently leading Venezuela's Primera División, and they won at Trujillanos 1-0. Their key players include Flavian Londoño, Jackson Rivas, and Jorge Gutierrez. They're going to have to deal without the services of Rafael Arce, who was suspended after receiving a red card in Group Stage 2. In Group F, Cerro Porteño hosts Brazil's Palmeiras. This is a long-running rivalry in Libertadores with a lot of nastiness. These two teams have encountered each other 16 times in Libertadores play, Palmeiras having won 10 of them. And over the years, there has been a record of brawls, fans incidents, racism, and so forth. Not only in Libertadores, but also in Libertadores Sub-20 and even the Libertadores Femenina. Cerro Porteño are currently second in Paraguay's Apertura tournament, after a 1-1 draw versus Sportivo Ameliano. Their key player is Rodrigo Melgarejo, but they're going to have to deal without the services of Gaston Jimenez and without Cecilio Dominguez, who, of course, is serving out the second of his 2-match suspension. Palmeiras are the league leaders in Brazil, having won most recently over the weekend at Bragantino 1-0. Their key players are Andres Pereira, who is currently the league leader in assists, and Jose Lopez, who leads the team in goals. Victor Roque will more than likely not be able to play for the Brazilian side with an ankle injury. Group G sees Lanús hosting Liga de Quito in a top 2 clash. Liga de Quito having 6 points, Lanús with 3. This is a must-win match for Lanús. They drew a goalless draw against Central Córdoba. They're 5th in Argentina's Zona A. Their key players, Dylan Aquino in central midfield, Walter Bow as forward player, and Carlos Izquierdos in defense, who does have a knack for coming forward, and he has scored 2 goals in Primera División this season. Liga de Quito are having an indifferent run in Ecuador's Liga Pro. They lost to Emelec 1-0. They're currently in 8th place in the league, and their April record is pretty mediocre. Over all competitions, in 7 matches, they've won 3, drawn 1, and lost 3. In fact, Thiago Núñez, manager of Liga de Quito, has come under significant scrutiny. The club president came out and said that Núñez will stay on as Liga manager for the indefinite future. How indefinite really depends on the results in the upcoming matches. They're going to rely upon Gabriel Villamil, Jesus Pretel, and Jose Quintero. These two teams have met multiple times in South American competition, 4 previous meetings in Copa Sudamericana, but this will be their first meeting in Copa Libertadores. So those are the 3 featured matches this week in match day 3. And now turning to the rest of the matches that will be played, Group A sees Estudiantes hosting Flamengo in a rematch of last season's quarterfinal tie in the Libertadores, while Independiente Medellin hosts Cusco in what is almost certainly an elimination match. Group B sees Universitario host Nacional in a must-win for the home side versus the group leaders. Deportes Tolima hosts Coquimbo Unido in another must-win match versus a side that has already achieved an away win in the group stage. In Group C, Bolívar hosts Fluminense in a bottom of the table clash, surprisingly enough. Fluminense need points against a Bolivar side who can't afford to drop any more at home. This is an encounter at altitude, but this is going to be a really tough match for the home side. Group D sees Cruzeiro host Boca Juniors. This is a Brazilian test for the Argentine side, and the big question is, can they keep their hot start going? They're going to have to try to achieve a result without significant players being available. Agustin Marchesín received an ACL injury in a league match versus River Plate. Ander Herrera is out with a muscle tear injury. Cruzeiro will be without Marquinhos, who is also suffering a serious injury. The other match in the group sees Barcelona host Universidad Católica. This is a massive match for the home side in Guayaquil. Católica won all 4 Libertadores matchups between these two sides, but the last time that they met was in 1993, so almost ancient history now. Group E sees Corinthians host Peñarol. Peñarol are under pressure. They've lost to Platense in Libertadores. They had a loss in the Uruguayan League, and Diego Aguirre is a manager on the break. These two teams have met multiple times in CONMEBOL competitions, but this is the first time they will encounter each other in Libertadores play. In the other match, Platense will host Santa Fe, second place team in the group, versus the bottom team of the group. Group F sees a first-time meeting between Sporting Cristal and Junior. Cristal really eager to accumulate 3 more points at home. Group G, Mirassol will host Always Ready in a matchup between the bottom 2 teams. Luis Caicedo of Always Ready will serve a 2-match suspension. Will serve the second match of a 2-match suspension in this match. In Group H, Libertad hosting Independiente del Valle, a meeting between the top and bottom of the group. While up in Venezuela, Universidad Central will host Rosario Central. A surprisingly competitive Universidad Central, should be said. Those are the matches that will make up Match Day 3. And a reminder that this week, you can follow all 16 matches on either Fanatis, Fubo Sports, or YouTube, where all the radio broadcasts will be streamed. Got a comment or a question about this podcast or about the Libertadores? Send them to my X handle at Soccermetrics. You can also send questions or comments to Soccer Down Here or to Jason Longshore at Longshoe. I'll be back later in the week to look back at Match Day 3 of the Libertadores group stage. Also, look out for a special episode looking back at the last 100 episodes and telling the story of 90s era Sao Paulo FC. This has been the Soccermetrics Copa Libertadores show, proudly part of the SDH network. See you later, hasta luego, e até mais.